This conference will now be recorded.
If we picked up the bill, we should get
Ready to
it.
start the meeting, guys.
Why should they have it in their money is income?
Good job, Phil.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Chris, if you would call a roll.
Sure. Mr. Measy,
Here.
Mr. Geppert,
President.
Mr. DePonte,
Here.
Mr. Grega.
I am here, but I'm hidden from the camera.
I can fix that.
That's okay.
Mrs. Phillips. She's here.
We can see her, but we can't hear her.
Hold
She
on.
must be muted on your end, Bruce.
You need to turn your mic on.
No, she's showing. Okay, now she's on. Teresa, check. Yeah. Well, quickly continue. Mr. Schofield,
Present.
Mr. Sikorsky, all present and accounted for.
Thank you. We have a full committee, and we also have 4 members attending in person. So we have a quorum. Should we need to take any actions, official actions?
Do we need anything to recognize them and their ability to vote, Chris?
Yes.
It's just recognizing that they are remotely attending, which we just did. So,
Okay. Approval of the October 8th minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as they are now drafted.
I'll second.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Yeah. Do we have a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to do that.
Okay, second,
I'll second.
assuming there's no further discussion. Chris, please take the roll of the
Okay.
minute.
take the vote on approval for the minutes. Mr. Measy,
Yes.
Mr. Geppert,
Yes.
Mr. DePonte,
Yes.
Mr. Grega,
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips. Yeah, we still can't hear you.
Put your head.
Nodding, okay. Mr. Schofield,
Yes.
Mr. Sikorsky.
Yes.
Okay, and she is not muted from this end. And her mic is showing unmuted at that end, but I don't have any sound.
Should she maybe go off and then come back on?
Go to her phone.
Gonna fall in.
Go to her phone.
She should reboot.
Yeah. Or try a reboot on your computer.
Sometimes when you come in early, that happens.
Yeah. Teresa, that's it. The phone in and then try and reboot. Okay, we'll move on. Financial report. Glenn, you're up.
Yeah, we received, I sent you as a separate email, the September. Hard to believe that we're already at our year end. We'll be working on the budget for the foreseeable future again. If we look at the actual, we were at a loss, although I don't like that word loss. I like over expenditures over income or revenue of 78,000. The variances you can see going through. I'm going to do more of a detail.
Are there handouts?
Only online. In your
I didn't copy.
yeah, or if you make a copy. So,
Right now, buddy?
Correct?
I don't see it. I don't see
no,
the boss budget.
no, not this, not the master department, not the I sent it to you in an email last Thursday or Friday.
Oh, I got that. I didn't print it.
Who did I?
Okay.
I said they were gonna have them here. Is this it, just these two sheets?
Yeah. See, let's go around the top. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Your explanation, they should lie. If we would remember to print it.
Yes, I assumed, right?
There you go. We don't use that word either.
No. I think part of the 78, we talked about 15, we accounted for with that water main, right, Scott? So we dropped that down. We were around 60 difference there, so we'll look at that a little closer. There was areas that we spent more money than we budgeted. There was areas that we didn't spend. So in budgeting, it's always a challenge to come up with, to be dead on. Also, we're going to see the new format of the expenditures that will be transferred from the town center to our property taxes and how we're going to allocate those expenditures. We'll wait for the copies if there's any questions. And Scott, we talked about preparing the budget, right?
Yes,
And we'll start working on that
normally 1st of March.
1st of March, because we're required to have it over here by,
Normally, that's not done until April, but we do our preliminary work right around late February, early March.
okay, like we did last year.
Yes.
Two pages each, right?
Yes, sir.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Any other questions, Glenn? Anybody have any other questions of Glenn?
Well, we're just getting the sheets now.
We're just handing out the
Okay.
actual financials right now.
So in reading this, we were 26,000 unfavorable sidewalk and road repair.
No, that was favorable.
Okay, so we're 24,000 unfavorable on that.
Yeah, excuse me, Scott Sherman, Pelican Preserve. Yeah, the variances to the expense is a negative is good. That means we spent under.
Understand, right?
Correct. So for the year, our expenditures were under by $32,995, although we had several overages, such as the landscape maintenance that was due because of the additional land that was actually passed on to us by Lennar. Tree trimming of $4,900. But if you look at the negatives on the variances, you'll see that we did not spend the money on sidewalk repair. That is what we're going to be working on this year. And you have a proposal in your package from me. Plant replacement was $14,000 below budget, along with the repair of the boardwalk and maintenance. Not as much repairs were needed this year.
It doesn't look like we did anything.
We did, but it was paid through by the district. So keep in mind that this is only what we pay through.
Okay, so
Ours.
those entities were contributing to the boardwalk?
Actually, the district, when the district pays a bill for Pelican Preserve, it does not always show on these financials. These are financials generated by Castle Group.
Okay,
These
but-
are actually what we pay and what Glenn approves. If there's any additional expenses, how are we going to get those going forward, Chris? If if there's expenses that are run through the district.
Well, I was just curious as
Yeah.
to why any expense to the boardwalk would come through castle. Any expense. Since
Why?
that is in and of itself a district responsibility and a district budgeted item.
Well, the repairs and maintenance have always been budgeted under this budget as far as the district's assets. This is the operational budget for the district.
Just under the O and A agreement?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah, this is all of the O and M agreement. This has
Oh.
not, Castle,
okay.
okay, yeah. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Any other
Street-
questions of Glenn or Scott?
Do we ever get an answer on the streetlight expenses we went to LEDs? Where does that ever show up? Is that not in this agreement at all, or is that?
Yeah, streetlight repair and expenses, that has to do with repairs. You're looking at, which expense line are you looking at?
I'm just looking at 706,521. My question is more broadly focused. Does the savings that we were going to get, going to LED lights, have they ever shown up anywhere?
I have no record of that showing up anywhere as far as reducing the electrical expense.
That's why we did it, right?
Well, again, that was done several years ago.
I know, but
So I'm not sure unless I go back 4 years and compare 4 years
I'm
ago.
4 years ago.
No, but I mean 4 years before you changed them out.
Well, the sales pitch was it was a significant reduction in cost to go to LED, operational costs. Somewhere I'd like to see that really came about. Okay,
Yeah,
it's just me, I'll be quiet.
I'm actually just looking at what has been done over the past 2 years. So if there was a savings, it would had to occur 3 years ago is where the savings would have occurred from that.
So very simply, if you just went back for 4 years,
Yeah.
look what the budget was and actuals.
I could look at
Those
that.
4 snapshots,
Yes.
we'd see if it ever went down.
Yes, I can do that.
Bob, it would definitely. And if I remember correctly, just looking at numbers and other areas where I'm involved with LED lighting, it goes down. Exactly.
But I've never seen it here, and I've asked it a number of times, that's all.
But didn't we add more lights?
Yeah, we have more all the time.
We did, that's why it was difficult to make a direct comparison.
I agree, because back 4 years ago, there was less lights.
Correct. So it's very difficult to make that exact comparison as a result of adding all the lights.
We could look at an old bill.
The only thing I know that we've changed with the LEDs was in old color. I don't think we changed anything. New color may have started with,
Did they?
I think they started with LED.
All right.
But
Wouldn't the cost per kilowatt show up?
well, somewhere, I mean, it's
Yeah,
just,
on the
I don't know whether it's dollars, it's
I get-
kilowatts or something.
I could go in and we can look at archives on,
We would just have to check 4 years ago and then pull it forward by a year.
yeah,
And see
How many
where,
light bulbs we had 4 years
Yes.
ago, how many we have, yeah.
I'll come over and we'll set that up.
okay.
Bob, can I ask you why you want this?
Only for the thought process of we were encouraged to spend additional money for LEDs on the premise that we would save our residents money. Now, why would we do it if it wasn't gonna save us money? I would never have voted for it. But to spend $1 today to save a quarter next year and every year after, that seemed like a reasonable approach. That was the sales job that I bought into. We would just like to see if we actually got it.
That's not-
Cost savings is also over a time period with LED lasting a lot longer as well.
To be determined, but yeah, it was supposed to be an immediate savings. That was the sales pitch. An immediate savings in energy.
Well, we can look at some bills back.
If I'm the only one in it, I don't really care.
No,
We've
no,
brought up a number of times.
well, you're an important person.
That's not going to show up. That's not going to show up on these statements. It directly, it has to be a comparison of 1 year to another. The saving isn't going to show up on these statements.
No, not on this one, but as you go back, it should.
Yes, if you compare 1 year to another, you should be able to see it. Agreed.
We got the numbers, I can pull them.
I mean, it's a lot of work to do these kind of things, but the devil's in the detail. I can tell you year over year what I'm spending in kilowatt hours per pond area. And if I'm always paying 15 kilowatts a month and all of a sudden it goes to 72, somebody goes to check why. I would like that kind of scrutiny on everything we do. That's all.
Well, lighting is a big cost.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
It would be worthwhile to make sure we're doing that same thing with our streetlights. Okay.
I have one question. The O&M agreement is expense for 2021 is on this statement as the last item. There's no account number, and I'm wondering why it's showing here when it's not going to be until 2021.
Scott Charnock, Pelican Reserve. We added it there for your benefit, so you knew it would be coming next year. That's why there's no GL associated with it and no numbers expensed or budgeted for.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further comments, questions of Glenn or Scott?
Thank you.
If not, we will move on. Item number 4. Chris, you're going to lead us through this, the district staff limitations and potential remedies of bidding and contracting projects.
Yes, and I do not see Tony online. Tony, are you there? I had invited him to come on to provide some detail on that. We had been working and moving forward with bidding the contract for Pelican for the security and also for the landscaping. And when we were setting up the bid meeting, Tony came in and said that because it was on behalf of the Property Owners Association, a private group, our staff could not be involved with it. And I countered and I said, well, the Pelican pays 14% of our administrative overhead and some select percentages of salaries for different positions. So why wouldn't we do that? He said, well, because it's being contracted with a private group versus the CDD.
But the precedent was established 8 years ago that the district did this.
Correct.
In these specific areas. I don't know why, maybe we just missed that.
Well, it may be, and I didn't know, and I'm sorry he's not online because he looked at was going to discuss it and then provide some detail that I was at a loss at, and then look at some potential remedies.
Yeah, Phil, Chris and I talked about this earlier, and since Tony raised the objection, he was supposed to be part of this, to tell us where his objections lie.
Did somebody call him and ask him?
He was invited.
Well, I mean,
But yeah, I don't know why he's not online. I did invite him and he said he'd attend and maybe he got busy, but I could send him a text and, remind him, or maybe something happened. I'll text him.
Could you do that? And we'll move on to other items. And then if he joins us, we'll go back to this one.
Okay.
But send him a reminder text if you would. We're not going to sit here and wait for him. Chris, you also have the next item, the Pelican bond closeout.
Sure. Basically, we sent a request recently to Lennar on their intent to submit a requisition for bond funds in the 2003-2013 special assessment revenue refunding bond. There were 2 projects left, and that was on a recap of that activity. We had an adjusted balance of $306,587. The engineer's certification dated August 21st of this year showed the current value of those 2 outstanding projects is the Villa Capri Phase 2 at $151,911,000 and the Track E Model Center at $45,892 for a total of $197,803. That would leave $108,784 in excess funds in that bond. Previously, the excess bond funds that were in there were utilized for aeration initiatives over in Pelican. And that's because that qualified for expenditures under those bond funds, which is.
Because it was old Pelican.
Yeah.
And that's bonds 1 and 13.
Right, Old Pelican, and also it had to be related to the infrastructure, the stormwater, the ponds, et cetera. So we recently sent a letter to Lennar to see if we're going to plan on making a claim on those excess funds. And to direct those dollars to improvements to the stormwater system that serve the north half of Pelican Preserve. And the district recently improved the conveyance and redid one of the ponds. There's one up behind Winn-Dixie and also on one behind the old Goodwill building on Colonial. And one of those two have been finished, and we were going to try when it dried up to move forward and do the other one.
Yeah, we spent 100,000 on the Winn-Dixie side, pretty close to that.
Right.
We haven't yet done the other side.
Correct. So
Bob, could you say that again, please? I didn't hear it.
Okay, Brian spent, let's just call it $100,000, taking care of the conveyance between Tree Line and Colonial behind Winn-Dixie. Yet to be done is a conveyance behind what we call the Goodwill Shopping Center to Tree Line. And we will use these remaining funds to finish that part out. And this was money that, quite honestly, I couldn't figure out how to spend it because we've done everything, but it was still remaining. So this was a great opportunity. I was reviewing with Brian some other things when he told me he spent money over there for us. We suggested that this might be a way to dip into the bond funds, and Chris checked it out, and it was. So we completely support it.
and we got an opinion from the district engineer and the district attorney that was suitable.
Yeah, the bond attorney, everybody voted.
So we're just waiting to hear back from Lennar.
Yeah, if we didn't use the money, Lennar gets it, I think.
Will we use it all up, or is it enough to cover?
It is used up.
Okay.
That calendar is dry.
Any question?
But they refused to pay it, or
No,
let us use it.
it's already spent. This was a kitty of money that was put aside.
Yeah.
The bond attorney manages the disposition, and we've disposed of all of it.
But you made a comment that if it isn't used.
Well, if we got to the point where we could spend it anywhere, it's still sitting there.
Yeah.
Lennar might have a claim. May not, but they may. The Tetra Tech's position on that was Lennar would never have a claim because they depreciated the amount. The dollars stay there, whatever those dollars are. But every year, because of depreciation, the value of the amount keeps decreasing to the point where it hits zero, even though there's physically money there.
We're just comfortable. They're not going to have a claim against it.
Well, if they have a claim, we don't refuse it. A little bit is left.
They won't refuse what we've spent.
We have spent, no, they can't. That's right. They can't challenge what we spent.
Okay, that's fine. Good.
Okay, any questions of Bob or Chris on this item? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next item. Ron, I want you to kind of take the lead on this, and Bob and I will support you.
Sure. As most of you hopefully remember, when we did our budget this past year, the community association came in and asked us to agree to fund a lot of the castle management bill for the year. I had a couple of discussions with Philip Robner on that particular issue and indicated I would support it on one condition, that we start the process to review all of the items that we, the advisory committee, is responsible for through the CDD, to see how much of that should be transferred back to the community association. Well, that budget discussion we had was almost 6 months ago. And I know the community association passed their budget yesterday, I guess. So this is the time to do this. As you heard earlier, we're having these discussions now that Tony doesn't want us, or the CDD, I should say, to get involved with some of the contracting that's been done for years. So I think we're going to get more and more involved with these kinds of discussions back and forth. I think it's really important that we make an honest attempt to look at all those things that we are now responsible for and see which one of those things can be put back to the community association.
Okay.
Ron, I think the charts that were prepared for the O&M agreement list each of those specifically, and for some reason, I don't know if Phil Rovner is even aware of that chart. And he was finally sent the chart, but his recent letters and some of the stuff get a little confusing.
I agree. I'd rather not get into Philip Rovner's emails because he's sent out a bunch of them that I wasn't very happy to receive, quite frankly. But I think we need to do this, okay? And I think, John, I think that O&M agreement document that you've spent lots and lots of time keeping updated is the original or initial document that should be used in that review. And we should formally get together with the community association and start that review process and start moving things back.
All right, do you want me to engage that with Phil?
Yeah, my suggestion is that we appoint Ron to move this thing and start getting together a meeting with the PPCA. Only one of us can participate in that, to start moving this process forward. I think there are a lot of different items that need to be considered. Some are more difficult than others. Some involve assets that belong to the CDD. But there are things that probably can be moved relatively easily, other things that are much more difficult. But I think I certainly agree that we should start the process.
Well, who do you want to start it? And I've been involved with each of those charts with Scott.
I'm sorry, John, say again.
I misunderstood who you said should review this with Philip.
Yeah, our guru on the O&M.
Let me jump in here. I know, Phil, you said you think that I should be the one in charge of this thing. And that's okay if that's what the group wants to have happen. But personally, I think John has got the right background to do this. I mean, John may agree or may not, because he's the one putting that O&M agreement, keeping it updated. So he knows what's in there and how those things were arrived at.
Yeah, he's the most.
If you want me to do it, okay, but I think John's the right guy. John, please chime in.
John, are you willing to take this on?
I've also worked with Tony on that too, so I have no problem doing it.
Okay. Well, John, what I think you would need to do is to communicate probably with Philip Rovner, set up a meeting with the PPCA to start this process off.
Okay, Phil, if I may, let me interject something here that I was going to bring up later. This is Bob. Chris and I met yesterday morning with Rovner, Rittenberg, and Scott for the purpose of, and we use the O&M document as the foundation of the discussion. It wasn't specifically associated with what we're talking about right now of moving a particular item from column A, being the CDD, to column B, which is the community association, but more focused on a broader interpretation of how do we take the functions that the CDD currently does for Pelican, when appropriate, and put them under the auspices of the community association. And we talked about a number, and Chris chimed in here, I mean, we talked about a number of scenarios. Some things look pretty straightforward and simple, like the things related to our safety and security working group. If that working group has physically left PPAC and went to the community association as a work group, a side committee, whatever you want to call it, and then their activities and things would be under the umbrella and the management cycle of the community association. At first blush, that looks an appropriate thing. There are some other items that become much more difficult. One of which is pods, because pods is more than just the water in our ponds and the guy that runs around squirting chemicals. Ponds is also responsible for the infrastructure. And the infrastructure is clearly a district responsibility. So we, as John and the group, from this point forward, negotiate through that process, there will, in all likelihood, be some things that will be excluded from it. Now, having said that, I offered, and at that time, it was my humble opinion as a pond steward, that I think it would be very appropriate for the pond work group to do for the community association just what they do for the advisory committee, and that is report, get consensus from that group as to the various projects we want to do and where we're headed, because this is fundamental for the benefit of our residents. I don't see that to be a conflict in any way. But legally, I think we have to have, as long as we still have our bond fund in the mix, we are tied to the CDD. And I don't know way how you can get around that. So the bigger purpose is how can we take everything that we do in this committee and move it to the PPCA? And fundamentally, I think we all agree with that. I don't know what the timing would be, the sooner the better, but they could and should be responsible for things like security. They could and should be responsible for things like landscaping and safety. These, again, just my opinions. The work group, the pond work group is the one flying the ointment that we couldn't just move over there and boss. I'm sure there's some legal hurdles to jump to get the gateway to relinquish that authority. But, it seems to me we ought to be able to undo what we did. We encumbered ourselves here when we were threatened with bankruptcy, and now we have a functioning governing body. So there ought to be a way that we can unencumber. So that's kind of my, anything else to add to that, Chris, or that sum it up?
Do we not need Tony's comments regarding that?
Well, that's part of CDP. Sure, we'll have to chime in, but we have our own attorneys in the community system. Correct. So, the two created this, we should be able to uncreate it somehow. Encapsulate pretty much the tone of the meeting for you, Chris, also.
Yes.
Hello, I just joined the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Don. My suggestion here is that we're not going to be able to sort this out at this meeting, and that we assign John then to get together with the people from the PPCA and whoever else is needed and start to lay out a plan how to do this.
The devil in the detail, right? You're absolutely right.
Which steps we're going to do first, which ones we're going to do later, and what we need to do to get them done. As I say, we're not going to work that out today, but I think we could appoint John to take that on.
All right, I will take that on, but I want to be sure that everybody in our committee, and specifically you, Phil, because you're on PPCA, is that chart up to date, or do you want to add anything to it from PPCA's standpoint?
Well, we'll take a look at it. That's one of the steps then. You're gonna propose that we have to look at the chart and make sure it's up to date. That would be part of the plan.
I discussed this with Scott just this week, and from our standpoint, it's up to date.
Someone's got some kind of a problem here.
Somebody's gonna win.
I think we're back from Tony.
I'm sorry?
Tony's here. I see he's online.
I've been out for about the last couple of minutes. I apologize for not joining earlier.
Okay, well, John, I think then you've got to grab this thing and get back and say, okay, now the PPCA has to decide whether there's anything else they want to add.
I will do that.
Part of the mandate, soup to nuts, you got it.
I did it last week and I didn't hear anything, so I will do it again.
John, for the sake of me and perhaps Teresa and Glenn, I never even heard of a chart. Is there a way that we can have?
It's in the maintenance agreement.
The maintenance agreement.
See one?
It's the exhibit.
It's the exhibit.
Yeah, and John and I worked on that a few years back, and it does need to be updated. Because of the various transactions that have taken place. And if it's appropriate, I'll work with John over the next week or so that we can bring something back to this committee at their next meeting. John, does that sound good to you?
That sounds fine. Okay.
Are you in town, or are you in town or out of town, or?
I'm sitting here at the meeting.
Oh, I can't tell. Okay, I'm sorry.
On camera though, I don't know.
Oh, no, you're on camera. I switched it.
Anyway, Tony, just give me some dates that you would like to meet.
Hey, I'll send you an email, and then I can mosey up there, and hopefully the early part of next week, and you can bring all the documents, and we'll sit around a table like we did last time, if I recall.
All right, that sounds good.
John, in the meantime, I think you ought to send that chart again to everybody on the committee for those people who.
What I would suggest, Phil, is that you send it to Chris, and Chris send it out to the committee. That
Well,
way,
that's fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
that way there's no temptation to have any communications outside the
Okay.
meeting.
All right. John, if you would do that.
Okay,
And if you include me on that also, John, I'd appreciate it.
okay.
But the exhibit, the document that we're all referring to was
Yes,
at
exactly.
the, Thursday, which wrote.
Which John,
Very
which
aware.
John sent.
Yeah.
John had sent that to all of us some time ago when this thing was being worked on, but okay. Let's send it through Chris to everybody. John will get together with Tony and start this process off.
And again, last time we worked pretty well on it, and we worked it out quicker than we thought. So hopefully we can achieve it this time also.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, now Glenn here, cash flow wise, will these expenditures increase, decrease, or stay the same on our assessments if we're just transferred?
Okay, the short answer to that is we do not pay 6% sales tax with the district doing it. However, Phil said in the meeting that he thought, and he had to investigate this, that the same exemption should apply to the community association. I don't think it does at this time, but they're going to investigate that.
Yeah, but I look at the 501 rules for the IRS. This is a government entity here, the CDC. So they get exemption of 5%. We only pay, for instance, on the security bill, that sales tax. So if we start paying those, unless the town center gets that exemption, we're gonna pump all our.
And that's one of the things that he needs to look at, that John needs to look at. Because if it's going to cost us 6%, then I would, sitting here, I would never vote to support that.
All right,
I'll keep it over here.
my discussions with Rich are that they are not a government agency at this point.
Exactly.
Correct.
They are not.
And we're not a charitable organization.
That certainly will be a point.
May I suggest we're not going to settle this here, but
Correct.
that is one of the considerations. When we look at this, this is a big complex thing. There are going to be lots of puts and takes, and we're not going to settle it at this meeting. It's got to be done in small groups with people who understand what's going on, and they've got to come back to us with whatever the recommendations they come up with. We're not going to sit here and settle these. Yes, we don't need to sit here and settle these technical questions. So John and Tony will start the process off, but eventually, John, you're going to have to get together with the people from the PPCA. How we move this stuff.
Any restrictions, sunshine law for PPCA? No. Okay. I just asked if there was any restriction with meeting two members of the PPCA at one
No,
time.
that is not a problem. You can meet two members of the PPCA can meet together.
Okay.
Not a problem. Okay, anything else on this subject? Okay, let's go back to item 4 on the agenda because we needed Tony here. Chris, you want to start in again, and then Tony can chime in as we go.
We think on the agenda, we were working on a bid package for the landscaping for Pelican and also the security. And Tony had some concerns about the legality. District staff working on behalf of a private organization, much the same as the sales tax. So Tony, you have any comments or big picture view of this and maybe potential remedies?
Yeah, Chris and I were chatting about this a while back when I was working with district staff to prepare the notices to go into the newspaper for soliciting proposals for various maintenance services. And then one of the notices that was provided to me for review was for proposal for landscaping services to be performed by PPCA. And I said, why are we doing that? Because under the Florida Constitution, public funds, that's district funds, which pay my fees, pay staff's costs and fees, can only be used for a primarily public purpose with an incidental private benefit. And they cannot be used for primarily private benefit. So Chris and I talked about, he said that my understanding is that historically that has, the staff has assisted in soliciting proposals from the standpoint of preparing documents and a number of other matters. And I frankly was not aware of that.
Well, one caveat to that, Tony.
I'm sorry?
One caveat to that statement. In the past, the areas that were bid by the district staff on behalf of Pelican, like landscaping and security, did not include the common areas of landscaping that Lennar paid for or WCI. At the present time, we are trying to merge that all. But in the past, when we bid it out of this office, out of the CDD, it was for areas that the CDD controlled.
Yeah, that's different to the extent that, if I recall correctly, the maintenance contract even talked about having to utilize the district's bid processes to solicit proposals for access control and landscaping. So to the extent it was district property that was being maintained, that's one. But in this case, my understanding it's PPCA or Master Association, not district property for which the district does not have a license or easement. And thank you for that clarification, Bob, because that's the significant difference.
Tony, Scott Charnock here with Pelican Reserve.
Hey, Scott.
Just to clarify, these expenses are paid for out of the GSCDD revenue budget that we are reimbursed by the district to maintain that checking account. So these are public funds that are being paid for just through a separate accounting department. But they are public funds that are replenishing that checking account to pay these bills.
Well, let me look real quick. I'm trying to, bear with me, find the notice that was provided to me that I had the problem with. Because it appeared it was going to be not for district property. That's how it read.
Then that was not written correctly, because what happens is we, through the O&M agreement with PPCA, manage those service contracts.
Yeah, correct. You maintain the defined district systems and facilities, which is part of the chart that we talked about, John and I work on to upgrade.
That's right.
So to the extent that the work that's going to be performed is on the district systems and facilities under the agreement, then that's fine for district staff to assist.
Okay.
But as I read the document, it appeared to be for PPCA common area or PPCA property, not part of the district systems and facilities under the agreement.
Okay.
That's my question to you, Scott. I thought we were adding the old WCI responsible areas.
Only if they've been conveyed to the district. We are not adding any additional PPCA contractual agreement services to this bid process.
Outside district provided services, I'll call it.
Yeah, these are all district contracts.
But I thought this thing was growing.
Well, it did, but those were properties that were conveyed to the CDD on the expense lines. You're talking two different things.
Yeah, clear it up.
Yeah, so some of them have to do with the final conveyance of properties to the district that have now increased our landscaping costs. The rest of it has to do with PPCA, which is not part of this bid process.
Okay, then I had it wrong, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're not.
No, Scott, I appreciate that clarification, and Bob, I'm glad you also helped clarify it.
Okay. Thank you.
It shouldn't be a
All right.
problem.
So do
I think we're on the same track now.
Okay, we're on solid ground as far as these bids are concerned.
With regards, I'll go back and look at it, but again, I think we may need to rephrase it to make sure it's clear that it's for PPCA doing the work under that agreement. And so I'm comfortable with that aspect, and I'm sure I can be because Scott and I work well together on these things.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay, so Tony is going to work out the bid documents so that they say the right thing and we're not crossing the wrong lines. Okay. Any more questions or discussion about this?
No?
Okay, if not, we'll now move on to item number 7 on the agenda. New member discussion. As we all know and are pleased to know that Bob is going to become a member of the GSCDD Board of Supervisors come a week from today. And so he will be resigning from the committee. We will need to select a new member. In discussing this with Tony, he believes that probably the proper approach is for us to do what we've done in the past, and that is go out to the community, ask for volunteers, and then make a selection from among the people who apply to serve on the committee. So I believe I sent you a couple of days ago a copy of a letter that we have used in the past to do this process. And I'm suggesting that we use effectively the same letter again, but edited obviously for the current situation. I would volunteer to take care of getting that out to the community via our communications channels. So are there any questions about that?
The only comment that I would make from a historical perspective for particularly the new members, the reason that I got into bonds is I was appointed by PMAC to do it. Way back when we took different tasks on.
I'm sorry, Bob. Bob, I'm not hearing you very well. Could you repeat what you said?
Okay, from a historical perspective, way back when PMAC was formed, we determined that certain things needed some expertise. So different members took on things. Somebody took on financial stuff and budgets. I took on ponds. There were different things. I don't remember them all now. But so then over the time, I gathered some expertise on this. And my recommendation right now is that now that I'm stepping down, that we absolutely need somebody that's familiar with bonds to take over, whoever that might be. But that needs to be one of, I think, at least my nickel is, that ought to be one of the requirements in who we're soliciting to, so they know what they're getting into, because it's pretty much a full-time job. At the present time, and I'm looking for feedback or approval of this, if I step down, the co-chair, Doug Zander, is agreed to step up and take my place. I will remain on ponds at his pleasure, just to ensure a smooth transition. And I know that Doug is going to be one of the people applying for it. Just keep that in your consideration process as we name the new member of PBAC. You don't want, this $750,000 a year going to a person that's not part of PBAC. I don't believe. No, that's not it.
Hey, Bob, this is Tony. I'm not sure I understood you said you would be I know you said you're resigning and yes, you need to do that. But you said you would help in the transition. I'm not sure if that's after you get on the board or.
No, I'll just be one of the 25 volunteers on the ponds group. That's just as a private citizen, not as a board member.
Okay.
Are
Okay.
we sure there's not going to be a recount on your election?
Could be.
I want a hand recount.
Suggested that.
I'm sure
Okay.
you did.
We will get this letter out in a timely manner so that we have applications back in time to consider them at our next meeting.
Hey, Bill, can I chime in for a moment?
Sure.
I think what I've heard is whoever this person is who gets on the advisory committee, the thought is that particular person will end up being the head of or liaison with the ponds group. Am I hearing that?
Another member should be appointed by you.
I'm sorry, I'm having a terrible time understanding anybody who's in the room over there. You guys, I guess, I don't know whether it's that you're not talking directly in the mics or what the problem is. Maybe it's on my end. But whoever spoke, could they repeat that, please?
It's Bob again. My suggestion would be, Ron, that PPAC needs to have a chair presence on the ponds work group. I think that behooves us all. So it'd be very difficult, say, for us to appoint someone that has no familiarity with ponds to PPAC, but then one of the other existing members would then have to step up and do it.
And unfortunately, we weren't allowed to be on the bond committee because Bob was.
Well, yeah, it's a catch-22, no doubt about it. But, you know, back at the time that I was on it, we did not go out for citizen bids or any of that stuff. We just appointed each other to where we wanted to be or where we volunteered to be. And I'm certainly not opposed to going out to the canvas and looking for volunteers, but I think that the caveat I want to be in there, that a prime criteria for consideration is a willingness to take on that Bob's job.
So we maybe just put in there, we need somebody that has expertise with ponds.
Well, I don't know if they need the expertise, but the willingness to put in the hours.
Willingness and expertise, if we could put that in the letter.
Phil, that's just something you can add an extra paragraph in the letter. That's all.
I think so.
Absolutely.
That would
Well, in many of the letters of this type that we've sent out for PPCA committees, we usually put in there what kind of qualifications people should have. So I think it would be appropriate to put it into this letter.
Yes.
Okay? Any problems with that? Okay, then we'll move on. Bob, I'm wondering whether under your ponds group report, you should bring up appointing Doug as the chairperson.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I was going to do that today.
Okay. Any more discussion on the new member? As I said, I will volunteer to get a letter out and I will add a paragraph to say something about the kind of qualifications we're looking for. Okay. That discussion is ended. We move on to Scott, your report.
Good morning. Good afternoon. So I have a few individuals on the call. Danielle with Securitas. So I would like Danielle to give her report to the committee. And then we also have Joe with Foster's Engineering that's going to give us an update on the boardwalk. So Danielle, are you there?
I'm here. I'm here, Scott. Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So just an update on our traffic counts for this month. We're looking at 9,004 guest entries, and we're up to 56,525 resident entries. So we're up about 11,000 resident entries. So a total of around 11,000 difference over the last month. So
Is that compared to last month or year over year?
that's over last month. Year over year, we're about 3,000 total entries down versus last year. So
We're down over year, okay.
yes, we are. We're down about 3,000 year over year. That's really the only things that I had. If anyone had any questions or any items for us that need discussed.
Have we started the extra guard yet?
Yes. Yes, we have.
I've got a
No observances to the backups at the gate yet. There's been a lot of chatter about people waiting long times to get through again, but I'm not sure I've seen major issues there, but something we should look into again.
That's why
Yes.
I asked the extra guard.
We have been using the extra guard and operating somewhat remotely with that extra guard to hopefully speed things up. I do have Phil Stone on. Phil, are you still on?
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
yes.
Yes.
So Phil, if you
Yeah, so
want to
we do.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, we have the second guard up there. He's equipped with a laptop that does have the dwelling live system on it. And what they've been doing, if it gets busy, is the second guard will go out and go down the line and start checking people in to help speed up that flow to be able to let people get in quicker.
I don't think there's been a problem. I don't know who's telling you that.
I've experienced it, but not like I did last year, but there's been a lot of chatter in the community on Facebook about it.
Patience.
Well, I don't disagree, but people have short fuses.
Just while we're talking about it, I guess these PDC apparently the community association very
I can't hear
seriously.
anything. You're muted.
Bill, you're muted.
If you're not talking, please turn your mic off.
Okay, what I was saying was, in yesterday's meeting with Grosvenor and Richburg, they strongly suggested that the community association wants to take ownership of leading the charge to get a second entry in front where we are. I guess a second resident entry, I believe. That was kind of news to me, but they were acting like we had never considered that in the past. And I know we had a number of times, and the cost was pretty good at that time.
Okay, Bill, do you have anything else?
I think we're having a little technical difficulty, maybe.
Yeah.
This reminds me about my old black and white TVs with an antenna.
Hello, this is Phil still. I've been having some pretty bad connection issues. I'm not sure what's going on with it, but I had nothing else to provide unless anybody else has any other questions for me.
We do not.
This is Ron DePonte. Last year, we started opening up the trap gate and even the exit gate during the weekdays during daylight hours. Are we at the point where that makes sense from your perspective to do that?
I definitely think the exit gate would help. There's been some times where there's a line backed up there and it's got knocked off a couple times because people try to just go right behind each other.
Sure.
But yeah, so I would think the exit gate for sure at least would be a good idea. It hasn't had too many issues. We just have the the issues occasionally when somebody pulls up and they're just not close enough to the barcode reader, and they're expecting the gate to open. But as far as like just massive flow of people that's backing up, we haven't had that yet on the entrance part. But yeah, if you guys would think that we could open the exit gate, I think that would help a lot.
Okay. Phil, what do you think?
Would it be during certain hours, Phil, or just when needed?
I mean, the only issue is going to be just really during the daytime. That's when, you know, a lot more people are flowing, but at least the daytime hours, I would say.
Why don't we do exactly like we did last year, whatever that was?
I would concur with that. I have a real problem having it up when there's a lot of traffic there and having it function the rest of the day. It gets people very confused. If they know that it's going to be up from 7 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night. That becomes very confusing.
Other comments? It sounds to me like we managed it last year. Ron, is that right? And we should.
Yeah, we had it open during the daylight hours. I don't remember when we started doing that. It was probably either November or December.
Mhm.
That obviously eliminates any backups during the day and people leaving. But it does have to come down at when it gets dark. I mean, you got to have some sense of security in terms of people getting into the community.
My suggestion is that we allow that to happen now and ask that Scott and Phil come back to us at our next meeting, tell us how it's going so we can make some decision as to whether we want to continue it.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
If we keep playing with the gate, then that's why people get confused. Now,
Well,
patience again. It doesn't take it doesn't get back up there. It's broken.
There have been some backups. I waited for a number of minutes for about 5, 8 cars to go through, primarily because 2 of them jumped into that area too quick and it didn't get read.
Wait a minute, we're talking about
The entry gate.
No, we're talking about it.
I'm talking the exit.
Oh, okay.
There's 2 things.
That gate sometimes is up and then sometimes.
That's what we're talking about. If you just keep it down, people get used to it being down. It takes 3 seconds, 5.
It's less of a problem down than it is operating on. Either up or have it functioning all the time for exit. And the fact is, there's 2 exit gates, which most people don't even use.
Correct. There'd be no problem. We can get exit gates down. When a car approaches, it goes out.
Well, I had a little fun the other day. I got passed by 3 cars on Pelican Preserve Boulevard. They're all in the right-hand exit gate. They all had to go through the gate, and I just went to the left one and went right through and passed every one of them, and I just had a good chuckle with that. People use both those gates.
are there others who share John's concern about the gate or comments about whether we should leave it?
Like what we did last year, leaving it up during the daylight hours. That's just me.
I would vote.
Ron, do you want to make a motion to that effect?
Sure. I move that we allow the exit gate to be open Monday through Friday during daylight hours only.
I'll second that.
Be until when?
That's a good question. I think last year we did it through March, which is the beginning of the end of our season. So it would be now through March of 2021.
We have a motion on the table. Comment. Any further comments? If not, Chris, will you take the roll?
Sure. Mr. Measy,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey,
Yes.
Mr. DePonte,
Yes.
Mr. Grega,
No.
Phillips,
Yes.
Schofield,
Yes.
Mr. Sikorsky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, Phil, with
6-1.
your indulgence, can I be excused from the meeting?
Yes, thank you very much, Tony. We appreciate your assistance today.
Tony,
Thank you,
before
John.
you leave, I got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Tony, this is Ron DePonte.
Hey, Ron, I see you.
Yeah, good. Having to do with the post orders. We've
Yes.
just finished a review. All of the members of the community, at the advisory committees had an opportunity to comment on it. We need to send that to the CDD for final approval, which is what we've done in the past. Do you want me to send that to you first? Because you obviously need to take a look at it.
Yeah, if you could, and then I'll get to it till next week so that could be on the December board meeting, if possible.
Okay,
Thank you.
good, thanks.
Thank you all. See you all
Thank
next
Still
week.
not here.
Thank you,
Thank
Tony.
you, Tony.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
Tony.
Thank you.
Scott, you want to keep moving forward with your report?
Yes. Okay, Danielle and Phil Stone, you can exit the call if you'd like.
Okay, guys,
And-
thank you for your time.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Next up is Joe Foster. He is the principal with Foster Engineering. They're doing the engineering work for the boardwalk, and he's going to give us an update. It's all yours, Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, for the record, this is Joe Foster, principal engineer at Foster Consulting. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay. To give you an update on the boardwalk repairs as far as the redecking of it and some substructure, we have submitted plans and all the bid specifications to Tetra Tech. That was done back in October 28th. We're awaiting comments from them so we can go out to bid, so we can do the proper notification and get it out to bid here. I do want to comment on some of this stuff, the things that we do have to iron out. There are some things that will make this project go up in cost, and we have to decide on what we want to do that. And that's going to be the requirements of a bid bond, liquidated damages. I did have a chance to review some of the stuff that was done by Tetra Tech on there, and that's what I used my basis of all my I guess front end documents on the bank replacement or stabilization project you guys did. The one thing I will make a comment, if we go down that road, there's going to be a lot additional cost to the contractors because of the amount of paperwork that was required on that bid itself. I try to go through my bid specifications and try to get it as clean, as tight as possible, not to make just paperwork material. So, but that is stuff that Tetra Tech is looking over, and we just need some feedback on if we're going to apply liquidated damages, if we're going to require a bid bond, if we're going to require a performance bond, and that's where we need some direction at this time.
Oh, and who was supposed to provide that direction to you, Joe?
I think if Tony was still online, he typically, with our bids and the amounts, does require the bid bond and the performance bond. The liquidated damages is another story. I have to check with them, but as far as, you know, the other two, that's typical with our bidding on projects.
And when we say more expensive, I mean, how much more for these things?
Well, if it's $1 million bid, then bond for the contract amount, so it does add cost.
Jesus.
Like 10%?
I didn't hear a dollar amount there.
Yeah,
Something
what's
put out or something, I don't know.
I would have to check and see what the latest is on the amount for a bond like that, what it would cost them. I don't think to get the bond it isn't 10%.
Yeah, I'm just throwing a number out. I have no idea.
what And
Can usually be about 1 or 2%.
Right.
Thank you.
thank you. It gives us an idea. And you say that Tetra Tech has had this since October 18th,
28th,
28th?
correct.
October 28th, about a week and a half.
Okay. We need to follow up. Scott, I don't know who needs to do this, but we need to follow up with Tetra Tech. They seem to take forever to do these damn things.
I will follow up with that.
Yeah, yeah. And if we need some help, maybe Chris can give it to us to jack them up and get them to get their work done. Any more to report on this, Joe?
No, we're ready to go. I mean, we have a very good set of construction plans. The bid schedule is ready to go. We're ready to rip and roar here.
Okay.
You have all your permits and things?
The local will be selected by or be obtained by the contractor.
We still have to go through permitting.
Okay.
Until you
So
award
we
the
haven't done
contract,
anything good.
no, until we award the contract.
When I hear that, Joe, I think you got the boards and you're ready to start building. That's why I asked.
Okay. Any further questions on this?
Just one administrative comment. Chris, I saw an email you sent out recently thinking that I was in charge of this project somehow.
No, not the boardwalk.
I'm not. So I just want to lay that out there.
Yeah, it was the safety and security on the signage. The sign upgrading on the intersection.
I think it's all the other projects, Ron.
Oh, okay.
Okay, any further comment on this? Scott, you want to move on?
Yes, thank you, Joe. I know
Okay,
you got
thank you,
things to
gentlemen.
do. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, in the packet that was sent to you, there were a couple documents. The first document was Gator Construction. This is for the grinding and the repair for the damaged sidewalk sections. Starting in phase 1, which is the northern section of the community in Old Pelican and Pelican Preserve Boulevard. So there's going to be 28 different areas that are going to be grinded, and there's going to be 205 square feet of sidewalk replaced. The cost of that is $4,952. Our greatest challenge is right now is finding contractors to do this small type of project. Out of the 6 contractors that I've contacted, and we used 5 of them in the past, 2 have gone out of business, 2 have retired. So this is not a large amount, but it's going to be an ongoing expense and project throughout the year, and we have budgeted these dollars to move ahead with this project. So I wanted to inform the committee, and I'd like to pass it on to Chris to sign and go ahead and begin the repairs to our sidewalks.
Scott, have we determined what the
You're muted, Phil.
Major cost
for the damage to the sidewalk?
for the damage, part of it is age and part of it is your favorite subject, live oaks. So, and that's going to be ongoing. So, because of the location and the maturity of our live oak trees. So,
Scott, I'm under the assumption that sidewalks are CDD or your responsibility, not the communities or the HOAs?
that is correct. That is a CDD asset and is funded under our budget.
All right, a lot of I know our community, we just did it ourselves.
Oh, thank you.
Some of them,
Thank you.
not all of them.
That was generous.
Are we allowed to get reimbursed?
You'll have to bring that to this committee. That's not my call. I see thumbs down, so the answer is no.
Okay.
You'll get a hearty thank you.
Well, it wasn't that expensive. I think we should urge other communities like Joe's.
We
To
do,
do all the
we're taking ours down. Our HOA is now offering residents some money to take them down. So maybe you should ask your HOA to pay you. You're paying into.
No, I mean, ours is a very small HOA. Again, no problem with ours.
Yeah, we're doing the majority of our work. I would say 90% of the work that we have planned is on Pelican Preserve Boulevard.
And it's needed,
Yes,
because people can trip and you get
Yes.
issues.
yes.
Can I ask, the Sevilla sidewalk near the monument, is that due to be repaired soon? The hole there?
No, where the hole is, where they've done the sewer repair.
Yeah, well, there's one by the monument in front, they have to put the road back together or pave it, but there's a sidewalk that runs along Sevilla off of Pelican Reserve Boulevard.
That has to do with an irrigation problem. That is not a district issue.
Unrelated to the collapse.
Yes.
So that's an Ameriscape?
I don't know who your landscaper is,
It's not HOA, but
but
that's,
it's the HOA's responsibility.
I didn't know. Okay,
it got mixed into the street collapse.
Yes.
It's totally
It's not the same.
so is it Verona or Sevilla?
I don't know. I'd have to go out and look.
My Nicholsworth says it's Sevilla, because Verona's down.
It
the
is?
other street.
Okay,
Oh,
It's
okay.
all Sevilla.
Thank you. All right, I'll ask their president.
yes. But because it was an irrigation break and it collapsed the sidewalk, that would be the neighborhood association.
Very good. And then the road is, the sewer break is going
Yes.
to be paved soon?
The asphalt, my understanding, it was going to be completed within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, very good. And the hot wire is going to pay for that, right?
Yes.
Hot wire's paying for everything.
Yeah, they paid for everything.
What did that cost?
I have no idea, but tens of thousands.
And I'd say, they had 4 pumps out there for a week.
Yeah.
More than a week, yeah. almost a week.
Guessing the underground portion of that repair, because they went in, made the repair, filled it, then re-excavated it to make a permanent repair. I'd say on the utility side, 40,000 and another 10 to 15 on the paving.
And then there's still, you have to clean the pipes, they've got that to do, so. Wow. Oh, yeah, it's a biggie.
I would only say in Hotwire's defense that they've been very responsive on this. This has been the biggest problem they've run into, but there've been others and they jump right on them.
I'm gonna guess a lot of that is insurance covered anyway. If they're smart enough.
It's a sub that would insurance company
Sure.
be eating that.
Well, Phil, I don't know how much of the details you got to do, but Hotwire was trying to do a lot with their crews, not bona fide engineering crews familiar with that type of work, but they quickly backpedaled when challenged. And we had appropriate repairs made by appropriate personnel.
Yep.
They did a good job.
It had to do with Strickler and Company, and Hotwire did it as cheap as they could, as I would also. But they did a good job.
But yeah, they did a good job on the interlocking brick in front of the town. All that's left really is the paving.
Yeah. But there were a lot of issues related to polluting their ponds and all, they stuff right up to that. They really do.
Any more comments on this particular project? If not, Scott, you want to move on to?
Yes, the remaining documents are just for your reference. Since our discussion with Tony and Chris, the one document for the RFP for security will go back through the CDD. So that's just for your reference and give you an indication of what that RFP will look like when it is put out to bid. Again, there's some discussion there. If we even need to put this out to bid because it doesn't qualify as a construction, it is a professional service outside the parameters of what requires a public bid. So we may be able to do this a little easier than we first thought. But Chris and I will work on that. First and foremost, does the committee feel we need to put our controlled access Securitas contract out to bid?
Based on my experience the last time, I'm well pleased with the work that Securitas is doing. And I didn't see a particular benefit to it. I mean, we cost tested them a couple of times.
Yes.
And most of the committee doesn't realize it, but at one point in time, was it Lennar WCI? WCI was doing blanket security for all their communities, and they just told us we were getting new people. And we refused to pay the new people. We told the new contract we weren't going to get paid. If WCI paid it, we'd be happy with that. And they backed off of that with Pelican. If you remember that one, Bill.
I'm pleased with Securitas.
Yeah.
Unless it's legally required, I say we just stick with them.
Any other sentiments on this?
This is Ron. If we're going to go through this review or transfer things potentially back to the community association, I would imagine this contract would be one of them potentially. We might want to hold off until that's somewhat down the road before we decide we would rebid it. I mean, it might be something that the community association might be in charge of in 6 months or so.
That would make the most sense at this time, Ron.
Yeah, what month did the rebid anyway? Just the calendar?
Yes.
I agree with Ron.
When's their contract up?
It's still in effect.
Yeah, but when does it end?
Annual renewal. You can cancel it within 30 days.
Yeah, when's the annual renew?
I'd have to check it. I can get that to you. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's pretty standard, as well as a 30-day cancellation for non-performance. We have no risk on continuing.
No.
Yeah, just so long as the PPCA then can decide and get that contract renegotiated and
oh yeah,
it's needed.
There's not a problem. That's why that 30-day clause.
There's time for that all to happen.
Yep. Okay, I think the consensus of the committee is we should continue the contract as is and not rebid it at this point. We can come back to that issue. Scott, any? Yeah.
The only other item I have is any of the other items pending on contractors have to do with the projects that I'm working on with Ron, with the safety and security work group. A lot of those activities are still with the permitting process with Tetra Tech. And once we get the permit, then I'll be able to move ahead with scheduling the contractors. So I have the contractor for concrete lined up. We're looking at, if we get the permit, they can start either late November or early December. And I can pull the trigger on the removal of the landscaping. I can get that done within 10 days.
Okay, since you brought up the those projects, let me just give you a 2-second update in communication with Tetra Tech. They've had some correspondence back and forth with the city. We thought the permit would be approved by this meeting. Unfortunately, the city decided to move to a new software program, and they were offline for, I don't know, a week to 10 days, which delayed things. But we expect them to approve the permit within at least a week or so. So maybe, maybe by Christmas, we'll have some of these things on contract. Who knows?
I was more optimistic. I was going to say on Thanksgiving, but okay, Christmas. All right.
You know, what will happen is the engineer in charge will stub his toe, will not be able to review the contract. This thing has been just incredible. Okay. Thank you, Ron.
I agree.
Does anyone have any other questions for me?
For Scott.
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
That's my report. Thank you.
If not, we'll move on. Bob, to your report.
First and foremost, I'm going to tender my resignation effective at the end of the meeting today because of the new position I'm going to be assuming. I would like to get a sense of PPAC to approve the appointment of Doug Zanter as the interim co-chair until further action is taken down the road.
Would he be interim chair, Bob, since you're going to be gone?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He would be the interim chairman until we appoint a permanent PPAC member and appoint the new liaison.
Any comments on that? I
I'll
don't,
support
I don't know that there needs to be a formal appointment approved by the GSCDD, since Doug is already a committee member. He's covered by the insurance. So I think just a consensus of the committee that he should assume that role, which is interim chair, will be sufficient. Any comments?
Doug is
I
on.
agree.
We should ask him what he thinks.
He's there. Doug, you want to comment?
Yeah, I have been, when I started working with Bob on the campaign, I thought that this is where it was. I'm excited. I've worked 6 years with the Ponds Group. I'm excited to take over in the leadership position there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug. Any other comments?
Let's appoint Doug.
Yep. Bob, do you have other anything else in your report?
No, John Greg has got a comment.
You say you want to resign at the end of this meeting. Why not wait until your replacement?
Because I'll be sworn in next week and I don't think I can be on.
Yeah, Tony gave a legal opinion of that at the last CDD meeting. It said the minute Bob's sworn in, he can no longer be a part of this.
Okay, so I'll delay the swearing in or the resignation until that date.
John, the reality of this thing is we're not going to get it done. We have to bring the candidates to the next meeting. We will make the selection, and then that has to go to the board. So this is not going to get done until early January. So Bob can't wait that long anyway. We'll have to operate with 6 people. We'll all have to pick up 1/7 of the load.
I'm willing.
And
Okay.
so officially, you take the office on the 17th.
2 days before.
2 days before the swearing.
Swearing and all that stuff.
No, but officially, you become that member of the board, according to the Secretary of
Yeah,
State.
Trump might want to recount. Just saying.
I understand Ms. Flaherty has some attorneys active in the community.
Okay, well, we're done with that. Not one that ever stirred up trouble.
Bob, do you have a further report?
Yeah, no, I've got to just get started, Phil. It's my last hurrah.
Yeah, I am sure.
And I would like to remind the committee that about 1.5 years ago, Ponds Work Group asked for permission to hire for 30 days a guard to monitor our concrete pit if Lennar did not step up and improve that function. And the PPAC approved it, but we never had to put it in because Lennar actually did a very good job of maintaining the concrete pit for the last 17.5 months. But in the last 2-3 weeks, they're finishing out Casella, and that's where this pit is. The appearance and the functionality has gone to hell. And Elle wrote a letter to Lennar this morning, to the responsible party, and they promised to have it fixed ASAP. And I just threw that out here as an item of comment because you can never take your eyes off of this. And as and Ron DuPont, as you got the guys coming in to do concrete work in the community, there are very stringent ways in which they have to clean their trucks. And this pit will still be available until the end of the first quarter in March of 21. So make sure that they are adhering to the proper rules and not dumping their cleaning processes in the sewers. I passed out to everybody the last budget for model year or for fiscal year 19 and 20 for the Ponds Work Group. We had a budget of $774,000. We spent $1,077,850. So we were $304,000 overrun. We applied that 300,000 overrun against our carryover balance of 373,489. And that leaves us with a surplus coming into this year. And confirm that with Stephen Blue, but Doug will, of 73,000. So if that comes in as we expect that it will, that 73,000 will be applied to downspouts in the fiscal year 2020, 2021. We are going to reach a point, or the work group is going to reach a point next year where we're out of money. Still have quite a bit to do in terms of downspouts. So at that time, I don't know whether we should borrow money from the rest of the PPAC or whether we should go to the CDD to borrow money or use reserves on the promise of paying back. But I think it would sit better with the residents of Prato and Pistoia if we can continue to finish out the downspout project. I don't have an estimate of what that would be, but I would think it would be somewhere just short of $1 million. So, and I think that the work group could probably support maybe $400,000 a year to finish this work. So as you go forward, but this will be a task that Doug will have, and we can leave him in the lurch. But I managed to spend all the money concurrent with my leaving, which was very good planning. That was supposed to be humorous.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Bob, so
Yeah.
when you talk about the ponds group spending 350 to 400,000 a year, that would be.
On that one item.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Slow down, Scott.
Yeah. Would that come out of your operating budget?
Yes.
Okay.
But we would be, if we decide to pull ahead doing Prato and Pistoia, then we'd be borrowing the money from somebody with the firmness we'd pay it back.
Mhm.
If we only spend the money that we actually have, then we'd have to stop work and wait till the next calendar year or fiscal year to start again. And that's, if I was sitting in Prato and Pistoia, of my druthers, I would like the PPAC to be creative and come up with a funding source that will be paid back by the bond's regular budget over a short period of time.
Okay.
I hope that's clear. For instance, in our budget, we have, $100,000 for aeration. Well, our real expenses are going to be falling far short of that in the future because now everything has been aerated. Now it's simply a question of electric and repairs, which I would be very surprised if that was more than 40,000. We have 100,000 a year for, what else do we have? Oh, stormwater cleaning. We only use 80,000, so there's 20 there. We have $10,000 for pond bank repairs. We haven't had to spend more than 1,000. So there's a lot of places that we could bump up the money. Next year in the budget, we have $309,000 just for downspouts, but I think we're going to need close to $1 million. But I can also tell you that once it's done, that 309,000 can be used in future years to pay back whatever we borrow.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to look at our reserves and see where we are, whether we could quote loan you the money.
So we don't have the estimates. Maybe they'll be lower, but I've never seen lower estimates. Parato's a big community. That's his Matarita and Carino. They have really sucked up the money. When we dealt with the smaller communities, we were whipping through 2 or 3 communities a quarter. Now we get into a neighborhood that spends 6 months. So that's all I have is one of my briefest thoughts.
Bob, I pulled this for Gateway on the reserves. I'm just showing them a document I pulled today. You see ponds there?
Yeah, 375.
Yeah, and then at the end though, they've got ending balance 47,580.
See, I do the same sort of thing. I started with 373, which is the same as you got. But I know I overspent by 303,000. So that 303,000 has to be funded somewhere. So it's coming out of that. So again, these numbers have not been certified by Stephen Bloom when he does. Maybe it'll be 73,000, maybe it'll be 40,000, but there'll be some extra money to put into the budget for this year.
Okay.
One of the challenges that Doug's going to have moving forward, and it's a good challenge, is that in the past, we had a lump title called Pond's Budget, Waterway Budget, and it was a number, 774. And we freely moved money from one category to another, the subsets within that 774 to satisfy the requirements of what we were spending. Now with Laura taking over of the budgeting process for the district, they no longer have the ability to move the money as we were Now it has to be allocated by a cost. So the downspout budget cost is X number of dollars. And you can't go over that, even though you may underfunded in another area. So that'll be a new accounting challenge. It's probably a more robust, well, not probably, it is a more robust system. So we will be better and healthier in the future at forecasting, but it's just a new challenge that we've never had to face before.
Yeah, because I look at the unassigned balance and reserves, and we have almost 800,000.
And that's the money I'm suggesting we might borrow from. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I agree, you know, and when you say borrow, I think a loan.
Well, it's not our money, we need somebody's money.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying, borrow. Take it out of the right hand and put it in the left. Yes, absolutely.
Because it's sitting there to be
But,
used.
but you gotta have PPAC's approval to do that, yeah.
Okay, we're not gonna go to the bank.
Oh, no, never have to go to the bank. No.
800,000 fixed on.
And Bob, you say you can't overspend in a particular cost category, but surely you can. You just go over budget.
Well, she won't, well, no, the requisition system now will not allow that. When they are issuing a rec at the district to the John Grega cleaning company, if there's not money in that account category to pay for it, they won't issue the rec. We ran into this in Matarita in the last year, because we were issuing POs to Copeland to do work. But this particular category was already filled out, so they wouldn't approve it. So I had to come over and sit with her, and we moved money around to different columns.
But certainly we can ask them to move the money, right?
Absolutely, but you can ask to move the money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, that was my
But
point.
there's more discipline in the system than there had been in the past. That's
Yeah,
all.
right. Mm-hmm. Any questions of Bob?
I wanna
Okay,
thank Bob, for all your hard work. I came in later in the game here, but you did a very good job. I remember when I moved into Pelican in '03, the condition of those ponds compared to today. I think too, what we had with this latest tropical storm, with the flooding not on our streets, you've done very well. We'll miss you.
We have a very good group.
I would like to second that. We will all miss you.
Yeah.
Come visit us.
Well, we'll see him on the CDD.
Here, here.
I have to tell you, it has been a joy. I never knew what I was getting into when I started with World Chamber. We have come a long, long way. And whenever the boardwalk project is finished, and I'm sure it will be finished, look at the lack of thalia out there at the end of it. That was the one thing that I told Jan we were going to stay with until we made it go away. We pretty much made it go away.
You've done a remarkable job, and I haven't been around as long as some of so appreciated the ponds and the effort and just working with you. Your camaraderie has been great.
There's 23 people in that group, and they are hardworking folks. We're very blessed to have that kind of.
I would not disagree one bit.
Gateway would kill to have those kind of people out.
We have a great community.
Thank you. We do. We have a special.
Very good.
Okay.
okay, Ron, you're up.
Good. I just got really just two things. You heard the short discussion we had with Tony about the post orders. You've all had an opportunity to provide comments. So unless someone else, I know Joe provided comments that have been incorporated. If no one else had comments, I'd like to get you guys to approve passing those post orders through Tony to the CDD for approval.
Ron, I have one comment. 65 pages. I don't know how anybody that's working for us can fully comprehend all that. My goodness.
Well, that you have to understand, those post orders, about 90% of that are really internal to the corporation.
Yeah, you know, that was a
That
question.
have nothing to do with directly, if you will, with our residents. And that's
I
the
appreciate
second
you
part of
bringing
this.
it up. Yeah, I had made a note of that and forgot it. I don't know why they have corporate stuff embedded in the post orders. And they've got their goals and it doesn't make sense to me to be in a post order. A post order to me is the marching orders. This is what you do, not how to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
if you will, that's the reason why we had that summary version of the post orders created.
Yes.
To pull out all of the things that are really relevant in terms of the interface between the gate personnel and the roving guard with our residents. And that's in that will be in a separate document that eliminates all that other stuff that you're concerned with. And that will, again, be sent to you guys once the CDD approves the post orders themselves for approval, because that'll be sent out to the community.
Well, I'd make a motion when we get to that point to approve it, but boy, that's a lot of stuff.
Sure,
Ron,
I agree.
Ron, do you want to make a motion that we send this?
Okay, move to approve the post orders as modified, to send to the CDD for final approval.
I'll second that.
That's a second. Any further discussion? If not, Chris, if you take the roll.
Certainly, Mr. Measy,
Yes.
Mr. Geppert.
Yes.
Mr. DePonte,
Yes.
Mr. Grega,
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Schofield,
Are you guys still not hearing me?
No, we hear you.
I hear you now.
Okay.
Mr. Sikorsky.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you all. The last item that I wanted to just bring up, and I sent you a copy or through the CDD or the CDD, a copy of an incident report that occurred. I guess it occurred yesterday. There was a theft in Ravenna that the landscaping guys, one of their leaf blowers was stolen. Okay, and the person who witnessed the theft got a picture of the truck that the theft ran into this truck and drove away. So the bad news is we had a theft. The good news is Securitas was able to use the information from the cameras from the front gate to identify the ownership of the truck and who the driver was. So that information was given to the landscaping guys, and it's up to them, obviously, to file a complaint with the local police. But they certainly have enough information to do that. So that's the bad news, good news there. Okay, but our system worked, because that's really what we wanted to do with that camera system up front, is make sure anybody coming in gets identified in case something did happen while they're in here, and we can go back and identify who the culprit was, and that worked in this particular case.
Ron,
So that was okay.
can you publicize that a little bit and get some goodwill out of it?
I don't know. I hate to tell the community we had a theft.
Let people know
There's
that
too much negative response to that.
Yeah.
They
I
did a
wanted
good,
you guys to hear it.
the incident report was well done and very complete. So
Yes, it was definitely well written. Definitely.
Yep.
And pretty much that's all. Some of the things I was going to talk about, we've already handled. So
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay.
It's Glenn here. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm sure we saw the dead boar along the
Yes.
Boulevard. Who's responsible or to pick that up?
Scott, you want to answer that?
Well, now we know.
You are, Scott?
It's having a pig roast.
Did you have a big roast?
It's barbecue at Scott's house next week. Yeah.
I'm actually curing it and gonna drop you off a ham, each one of you next week.
Well, thank you.
it was
So-
that big?
Oh, it's huge.
Oh, it was not a wild pig, it was a young boar. So.
Right.
It was about 90 pounds.
Wow,
Oh, that's all the picture looked like.
Yeah, well,
I saw it.
we had to drag it out of the road and then pick it up the next day.
So you did?
Yeah, I made arrangements for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Squirrels, cats, wild animals,
Yeah,
and armadillos. I do it all.
Turtles?
Turtles.
Okay. Moving right along. Gateway attendance schedule. John, you're up for the 19th of November. Chris, are the meetings on the 3rd and the 17th as they would be, or do the holidays change that?
They are planning on only having one meeting in December unless the board changes it as to.
And what date is that?
That is the first Thursday.
The
The
third.
third. The
Third.
third? Is there somebody who can attend the meeting on the third?
I will do it.
Thank you.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
Joe,
Joe, thank you.
since I dropped in on them anyhow,
Okay.
I'll be here too, Phil.
Oh, yeah.
really a point different report.
Okay.
That's the terms of them leaving.
Committee member requests and audience comments. I'd like to inform the committee that, as you're aware, there is work being done on this construction road, turning it into an emergency, potentially turning it into an emergency road, and also an place where the CDD can bring in its utility equipment. It appears that we may have to go to the city to get the DRI amended in order to pull that off. But one of the other things we have to make a determination is how it's going to be funded. And just for your information, I'm going to be attending a meeting next week probably with people from the PPCA and others to talk about how we fund this. Chris will probably be there as well. So that project is moving forward to get some kind of a road out there. And we want to do it quickly before Lennar departs. Any questions on that?
Well, what I had heard, Phil, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if this hasn't been agreed, then Lennar is going to tear up the road and restore it to a vegetative state. In the absence of us doing something, that's what's going to happen. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what the DRI says has to happen. So that's what would potentially happen if we're not able to get this done.
Yeah, when I was at the CDD meeting, Russell, and I forget his last name,
Russell Smith.
was very adamant to the CDD
That was Russell Smith.
Okay, Russell Smith, if nothing is done, they're digging the road up. They're not waiting. That's their terms, and they're not. His comment was they're not going to do anything extra, spend one extra penny on anything. They'll meet what they've agreed to. And if that road has to go and nothing's been satisfied, they're doing it and packing up. He was very adamant about that, wasn't he, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he made no bones about it. We're going.
Phil, what is the potential budget for that road? What are you looking at?
We don't know, John, and we will not. We're going to get. Hopefully by next week we're going to have some idea of, at least order of magnitude of what it will cost. And I can't tell you.
I mean, are you looking at a paved road or are you looking at just a stone? What do you, and
It has been discussed with the emergency people, and it's a road that's got to have a foundation so that emergency vehicles can come in over the road. So it will not be a stone road. It'll be something more elaborate than that. So we're talking a good deal of money here.
20 foot account.
well, that's what I thought, and that was well over $500,000 or more, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Could be. I think that's distinctly possible. Yep.
It could be a lot. I mean,
A lot more.
it could be $750,000. When you say emergency vehicles,
Fire engines.
my question was, using the main entrance that we have now for emergency vehicles versus using that road, has there been a time element to say, hey, we're gonna save 20 seconds, we're gonna save 3 minutes, 5 minutes?
Well,
without laboring it or answering that, John, what it's gonna come down to is when the new fire station is open over here in Gateway, a study will have to be done. That if you leave from that fire station with an ambulance, and get to Pistoia, how long does that take? If you take the same route and you have to go around through Tree Line, how long is it gonna take? You know, if you're a
So you're
citizen,
saying
you're a citizen in distress and it could save you 6 minutes,
Oh,
you don't care about that $500 million.
no, I'm saying though that you always have the response to the tree line.
Absolutely. But the question is, this would maybe much faster.
Let's find out.
Well,
That's a very quick
that's exactly what
question.
they're doing.
It's an easy question to answer.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Well, and if I can comment, it may not be that easy because the fire services, the city of Fort Myers is in charge of fire service, and their tree line station is pretty quick. I mean, you're getting a lot
Very
faster. You get a lot faster service than you are to Botanica or the other subdivisions further down tree line. Where it may come into play is all the fire service units are dispatched by GPS, meaning the appropriate unit that's closest. If you had all the units that were in tree line on other calls, could be a big advantage of having those units come from South Trail over here. It would just depend, but again, it's all dispatched by closest, most appropriate unit, and it really doesn't matter whether it's South Trail or City of Fort Myers.
But right now, Tree Line is the only game we have.
Right.
They're very good.
Any more discussion or questions on that?
They're probably pretty quick.
Okay. Further committee member requests? Anything from any of the committee members? Okay. Do we have anybody listening in the audience who would like to make a comment? If not, our next meeting is December 10th. I would just like to add my personal thanks to Bob Geppert for his years of service on PPAC. Terrific work he has done with the Ponds Committee, and we are very pleased to have him as a representative on the CDD Board of Supervisors. I'm sure he will represent Pelican Preserve very well, and I'm couldn't be more pleased. So Bob, on my behalf and on behalf of the committee, I'd like to again thank you for everything you've done.
And I will be representing all of it. Thank you for that.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
We'll take a collection, yeah. I second that motion, Richard.
Okay, I declared the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
3:52.
Thank you all.
Now we'll take a collection for a dueling pistol for